Well, everybody, this is just a terrific video idea, don't you think? I just came up with it myself. I'm a genius. We're here to rank every single anime I've seen. Now, you're looking at this and saying, Mr. Entertainment, that's only 35 anime. What are you, a fucking loser? Never seen an anime in your life? And I would say, uh-huh. Now, these aren't all the ones that I've dropped. There's no movies on this list besides the Berserk film trilogy, but there's more than one movie, so it counts. And I've just put everything, because there's like one thing for Evangelion, and, you know, they're all just going to be in like the top of S tier. So do I really need to individualize them all that much? I didn't have things like Steins Gate Zero on here because I never saw the last 2 episodes. I'm sure there's other exceptions too, but I did put My Hero Academia on here, even though I've only seen the first 3 seasons. I don't even know if that's true. What happened? I watched the first season of the next season, the first episode of the Overhaul stuff. That's where I stopped My Hero Academia, which I think is the beginning of season 4, if I recall correctly. But there's some little maybes here and there's that maybe I could have got more things under the list, but I don't have them on the list, so whatever. So if you're making fun of my anime cred right now, I'm flipping you off. Also, my funny intro about this was because Elite RE just did this on his stream literally hours ago, and I stole his idea. But he didn't have cool circles, he had shitty squares, so that means we're way cooler. Now, something I just did on stream, because we are streaming right now, though chat's not too lively, so you might not see him too much. They used to say hello to YouTube. They don't do that anymore. What am I talking about? Oh, on stream, I just did a little thing where I put all of them in order of seeing them. So we'll talk through that as we go through the list. But if you want the behind the scenes of that scintillating piece of content, you're going to have to check out the Kylie and T VODs channel or check out the Twitch, because sometimes I'm late on uploading those VODs. Anyway, let's get into it. So at first we have sort of the childhood era here, before we sort of get into anime knowing that it's anime, which starts with Attack on Titan in like 2014, early 2014, I think. Though that's not really true. Anyway, these are the ones that we started as children, though there would be a little bit of Naruto and a little bit of One Piece here, but I dropped them and then watched them really later, never really watching One Piece, so I've read a decent chunk of One Piece. That's not even true. If you counted it up, it'd probably be like 20%, a little bit less, maybe, well, 250 chapters or so probably about 20%. Anyway, these are the great shows we watched as kids, and some we haven't rewatched, so, you know, our rankings will be iffy. But one we are currently rewatching is the great Pokemon that's absolutely going in S tier. It might be the bottom of S tier, but it absolutely is. Obviously, in my rewatch right now, I've just switched to the 4th Pokemon dub OP, as in, I haven't even watched the first episode yet, but I am about to switch over. Literally, the next episode I watch, we'll be doing Pokemon Johto. Yeah, what a song, chat, what a song. Getting rid of that shitty 3rd opening. We hate it. That 4th opening was featured on my great top 50 anime openings video. I think it was actually top 30, but that's crazy. A lot of those anime will be on this list. Can you believe it? So Pokemon is terrific. I think before the rewatch, I probably would have put it in B or C tier because, you know, people just shit on the great Pokemon anime. But having rewatched it, it's just the greatest, most episodic, greatest little narrative. What a great show it is. I'm doing videos on them currently to sort of express my great love for the Pokemon anime. I think it's funny. I think it's cute. I think it's hilarious. I think it's cute. I think it's hilarious. I think it's cute. And those are the 2 things you want from a Pokemon anime. So it's terrific. Even the characters and the plot, I'm liking a lot. Which you don't expect, and people always shit on in this anime. Obviously, there's like thousands of episodes. I've only really seen all the way through Sinnoh and a decent chunk of Black and White. All the newer stuff, I've only ever seen clips. But as a kid, I don't know, as a kid, there's like frustrations you have with the Pokemon anime. It was still like, Pokemon anime at its heights is still like the greatest pieces of fiction you've ever seen. Some of those 6-on-6 battles, Ash fighting for his life, and some of those leagues, it doesn't get any better than that, especially when you're a little kid. And nowadays, well, I haven't really gotten to the cool Pokemon leagues yet, but one day, and then I'll reaffirm that that's great. But I truly do think the writing is super creative, especially for an episodic format. I think the show is legitimately funny. I think the show is legitimately cute. People probably wouldn't even argue with that one. And I do think it's poignant and emotionally impactful at times. Sometimes very much so, especially in your favorite episodes. And I've learned that there's not that many bad episodes either. In fact, I've never rated one bad on my little internal ranking system I have when I'm going through the episodes, where they're supposed to be bad, mid, high, and high, which are the best episodes. But now I've sort of slowly adapted a low-high, normal-high situation. I've given a few episodes mid, but, I love the great Pokemon anime. Oh, it's just so good. Pokemon The Origin, or Pokemon Origins, I think is what we call it mostly. I think I've only ever seen this once. I do own the DVD. It's a 4-episode OVA that's like more in line with the video game. I remember being frustrated as a kid that it skipped around too much and that it was so short. But it's also like an X and Y tie-in, which means it probably should be in the 2014 category over here. Who am I kidding? X and Y came out in 2013, you fucking moron. I remember thinking it was cool at the time. At the time, I definitely thought it was cool because it was different to the Pokemon anime, and the Pokemon anime was bad and for loser kids. And I was a 12-year-old who was on the internet and knew that people didn't like the Pokemon anime. I'm pretty sure the animation's really cool in this. I don't know. I have very little memories. I remember Ash versing the Elite Four. I think most of the last episode is about him trying to catch Mewtwo. Did I say Ash? I meant Red, of course. Boo. We hate Red and we prefer the Great Satoshi. And like he goes Mega Mewtwo. No, Mega. Maybe Mewtwo goes Mega, but Mega Charizard Y. No, X. The shitty one. The black one that everybody likes. I prefer Mega Charizard Y. And stuff like that. There's obviously a whole episode about the Lavender Town stuff, trying to hit you in the feels and be more adult. The battling, I remember, I think a clip from the first episode went viral at the time because it was like, this is what Pokemon battles should look like. And like Charmander is, or Squirtle is biting Charmander on the neck or something, and it seems much more violent than something you would see most of the time in the original Pokemon show, because the original Pokemon show was more lighthearted and funny and cute. And it was like a brutal Pokemon battle, brother. Oh, this is epic. This is what we wanted. We wanted edgy Pokemon. Sounds retarded, but that's how people actually thought at the time. So I don't know, I'll put it in B tier. I remember vaguely enjoying it while being frustrated that it was like a sort of a clip show of his much longer journey. Bakugan, Battle Brawlers. Now, what a concept this was when I was a kid. I have no recollection, really, of this show too much. I remember Dan, the MC. I remember the girls were cute. I remember Sharon over here was a bit of a Sasuke character. He had black hair. He had the green ones, which I was think Ventus or something might have been his thing's name. Or maybe that's the type. I think Pyro might have been the fire red one. I don't remember. Drago, I think that was the main guy's thingy. The Bakugan would like talk to each other in Bakugan mode. I don't know, I would be vaguely curious at some point to go back and watch this. You know what's not on here? The Great Del Toro Quest. I fucked up my list. This is terrible. Del Toro Quest, which I did rewatch relatively recently, though that relatively recently was 2019, and then I made a video about it. Can you believe it? Del Toro Quest would probably go at the top of B tier too. Though my sensibilities have probably changed since late 2019, so maybe a Great Del Toro Quest rewatch is in order. We'll get a lead Ari on it. Bakugan never had the highs of like a Pokemon, but it was pretty cool. There was some, they would go to the Doom world or whatever the fuck it was called. It's definitely not the Shadow Realm. I feel like it was like the Doom something. There was some cool lore. And then, like, the Alice girl, I just remembered her name. She was the extra cute one who didn't battle. It turns out she was actually the bad guy the whole time or something. But she was, like, brainwashed. Something. I can't remember. But this plot was crazy, brother. This plot was crazy. So, yeah, I'm vaguely curious. But my memories of it are pretty good, so we're going to put it in B tier. Obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't here because I've never fully seen a Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I'm pretty sure I saw every episode of the original Bakugan on TV at some point. I'm not confident at all that I've seen all of the episodes of any Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. That being said, GX, depending on how you count it, might count, because I'm pretty sure I've seen all the dubbed episodes of that, because I remember it having an ending. Jaden was like a bad guy for a little while, and then a crocodile guy snapped him out of it or something. But there's also famously not all of the anime was dubbed and it's like incomplete and stuff. So some people would say, no, you haven't seen it all because you haven't seen the sub. I guess maybe later it'll be important to point out whether or not what we watched the subbed and dubbed. But obviously all of these I watched the great dub. I would never watch Pokemon in sub. Are you kidding me? But true. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't here, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, it's higher than Bakugan, definitely. We're going to put in the A tier for Yu-Gi-Oh! But also, if I ever finish Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Will be next up on the agenda. If I ever take a long break or something, I want to rewatch Yu-Gi-Oh! At some point. It sounds epic. We love Yu-Gi-Oh! Then we have It changes your life when you see it as a child. You see the great Dragon Ball Z, and it's absolutely the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. I don't know if I have the confidence to put any of the Dragon Ball things in S tier. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, I'll put relatively recently. I feel like I usually say that Dragon Ball is better, but do I believe that? I don't know. So we're probably going to put them on equal footing. For me to have any real opinion on either one of these two, I think a rewatch would definitely be necessary. What is there to say about Dragon Ball? I mean, it really is, like, when you see it when you're, like, 12, it is, like, the best thing you've ever seen in your life when you see it. Now, naturally, frustrations do creep in, where it's, like, some, like, character inconsistencies and stuff that you pick up on, and sort of characters being left to the side that you wish wouldn't, especially when you've seen Dragon Ball. Now, I remember I watched Dragon Ball. I watched it in patches so much. But I remember I got to, like, the Cell stuff, and then I went and I watched most of Dragon Ball, because I would watch Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z was never on TV for me until Dragon Ball Kai. So I watched most of, all of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT by renting the DVDs from a rental shop we had that was very local. And you could get 10 DVDs for $10 or something, or for $11 or something for a week. And I would walk in and we would get 3 wrestling pay-per-views. Booyah. They were always right at the front because you needed them. Then we would get 3 anime things. And it was usually Dragon Ball, like it would be like 3 of them. And sometimes they had the individual sets where there was like 4 episodes on each disc, and sometimes they would have the yellow bricks or the orange bricks, and so it would have like a million. They did split it up into individual discs, so it'd be like 8 episodes a disc. And then you'd get like 3 boring normal live action movies that you wouldn't watch, and like 1 other thing or something. I remember at some point I Dragon Ball. I must have finished with Dragon Ball or something, and I remember I got Naruto, the first one, One Piece, the first one, and Yu Yu Hakusho, the first one, and then watched all those when I was like 13. And Naruto's the only one I really stuck with. I think Yu Yu Hakusho we dropped after the first disc. Not that I didn't like it, but when you're trying to manage which 3 anime DVDs you want, you're going to get 2 Naruto ones and 1 One Piece one. And then by the time we got to Arlong Park, we got rid of One Piece. And then by the time we got to the middle of tuning exams, we got rid of Naruto. And then I would rewatch Naruto later on, like Kiss Anime in 2014. That's why it's in the 2014 section here. But also we would like stop going to that store every so often too, so we would like lose pace. But anyway, so my viewing order for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is a little off. So they are very similar to me. They do have different vibes. That is frustrating a little bit. Now, obviously, Dragon Ball GT is here, and it has a much different vibe, and it was much more off-putting to me as a kid. I didn't like Dragon Ball GT as a kid. My memories of it have sort of been retconned, I think, to appreciate it a lot more and think it was kind of cool. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier here. Basically, these are all in dire need of a rewatch. I know, Dragon Ball Z, the best saga is the Buu saga. We all know it to be true. Cell is obviously the most boring, because Cell's boring. The androids are pretty cool, though. And obviously Planet Namek, like the beginning parts is like the peak of DBZ when there's like 3 storylines going on and you cut in between the 2. Then it's ruined when the shitty Ginyu Force show up and it's a little boring for a little bit. And then the Frieza fight's there and you're like, oh yeah. Also, the best parts of DBZ are like the slice of life parts, obviously. And obviously, the actual best part of DBZ is the high school stuff with Gohan and Videl. This has always been true for me. I do like romance shows. They're going to show up relatively soon here. Even as like a 10, 11-year-old kid, I loved like love storylines. Maybe it was because it was so like if somebody said I liked a girl when I was 10, I would like kill myself. Like that's the most embarrassing thing of all time. I could never. But like in my little TV shows, I'd sit there and just wish for Gohan to get his girlfriend here. Though I did hate adult Gohan even when I was a little kid. I was like, this guy sucks and is not my cool Gohan. Because obviously Teen Super Saiyan 2 Gohan is the coolest character of all time. And this shitty adult version is lame. But he has a hot girlfriend named Videl. So I was very into that, and I was like, oh my god, are they going to kiss? They like each other, I know they do. So the high school romance stuff was obviously the best part of DBZ. Dragon Ball didn't have any of that, but Dragon Ball was so wacky and cool, and it was like, Oh, when's Tien getting introduced? Oh my god, here he is. When's Krillin getting introduced? Oh my god, here he is. When's Piccolo gonna? Oh, there he is. King Piccolo. That's peak Dragon Ball right there. Dragon Ball GT. It was good, I guess. Now we got the Great Attack on Titan here. Changed my life forever. The Great Attack on Titan. It became my series. Though, like, I don't like the anime now. When I first watched Attack on Titan, it was, like, so cool. I think this was when I first started to appreciate, like, I've seen all these shows, right, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And even, like, I'd watch, like, more adult TV shows with my mum all the time, like Hawaii Five-0 was a big one. I always bring up that Kevin Bacon show that was about that stabbing cult that I watched when I was, like, 10. Things like Under the Dome. And these were all rather straightforward, like, shows, with sort of straightforward plot lines. So, and Attack on Titan is obviously very sort of, like, subversive immediately. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I think that changed my media, like, taste trajectory forever. Like, Eren's mum getting brutally eaten in the first episode, that was the most violent thing I'd ever seen to that point. And then, like, him dying in episode 5. I remember I was half watching it and my brother was kind of sitting there. I don't think he was paying attention because he's 3 years younger than me. So I'm like, 12 at this point? He's like 9. And Eren died and I didn't buy it for a second. Even, like, little 12-year-old me, I was like, Eren's not dead, obviously. And then the Titan popped up. And it's funny because you watch reactions and for some reason they don't immediately, the first frame you see Eren's Titan form, go like, obviously that's Eren. But I did as a kid. I was a genius. And obviously, as soon as a blonde Titan shifter shows up and the sexy blonde girl stayed back, I was in love with Annie at the time, right? It was okay. I was 12. And she's like, it wasn't there. Obviously, she's the female Titan. Like every twist I saw coming from like a mile away. But there were grander mysteries because I love romance and I love mystery and Attack on Titan. And I've talked about this before, but it's like a weird thing. Like, it's very, like, you shouldn't assume. Like, when I went into it, I was like, oh my God, where did the Titans come from? Where did the walls come from? I can't wait to find out all these things. What's in Eren's basement? Where did Eren's dad go? All these things. But those first two, you probably shouldn't assume in a show you're starting will ever explain, like, where the Titans come from or where the walls came from. For whatever reason, I defaulted to, like, they're going to explain why this isn't the normal real world, which does pay off in Attack on Titan. So I guess I struck out there. But obviously, like, the theory crafting thing was massive, and it's like something I always hope to get back. Like, if I ever caught up on One Piece, by the time I get there now, all the mysteries will be solved, I'm pretty sure. But being into mystery shows and having sort of mysteries, and we've just caught up on Heavenly Delusion, but sort of all the mysteries are kind of understood at the point I'm at in the story, besides the bigger ones, and there doesn't really feel like there's a lot to speculate on in that, you know? Whereas Attack on Titan, you definitely were supposed to speculate on that. So all that mixed together with, like, the characters dying and it being sort of really fast-paced, and I just loved it at the beginning. It captured me. I would have had it at the top of S tier, my favorite thing ever at that time. But now that I've read the manga, I'm like, this anime kind of annoys me in the way it cuts at stuff, and, you know, it looks bad when that shitty Mappa studio takes over. Elite Ari agrees, of course. Oh my God, CeeLo Pilder showed up in chat. This is big. I'm watching The Sopranos, and your favorite Tony B just came back. Oh my God, the great season 5 CeeLo Pilder's on. We're not talking about The Sopranos here. We're talking about anime, of course. Oh, this is being custom made for you. Indeed, I got Elite Ari to get ChatGPT to make this for you. Elite Ari just did this on his stream before CeeLo Pilder. You missed it. So I guess I'll put Attack on Titan at the top of B tier. I feel like, again, now I'm going to say this a lot in this shitty fucking thingy, but I think a full rewatch of Attack on Titan at some point would give me a better, like, do I think the anime is a substitute at all for the manga? At this point, I would be like, if I had a fan that was like, oh, I want to get into Attack on Titan, I would tell them, if you read the anime or watch the anime, I'm disavowing you, I'm going to ban you, I'm going to kick you out. Terrible decision. Fucks everything up. But, like, I feel like the most likely scenario for me rewatching Attack on Titan would be with my girlfriend, which means I would have to watch the anime and I probably would have to watch it dubbed. I'm like, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see how it holds up to those scrutinies. I guess one of my big issues with it, I don't know, like, some of the action scenes I don't like. The dub specifically I really don't like. I don't know. What else don't I like about it? They changed some things around. The Uprising arc is probably the biggest one. Because it brought into Kaki Sayama's idea that the Uprising arc was bad or something. When I especially like the Uprising arcs, like, sort of untidiness. I think it's very good, and a lot of the smaller details of that never really get brought up again, which is probably because Isayama is anime pilled. He's a loser, but I really like that stuff. So that's probably the biggest reason. And then later they do shift things around a little bit. I think it looks worse sometimes. I think a lot of the moments don't have as much impact, like even the Yamiya moment I remember being a big thing. There are things to admire about it. It's not like it's Chainsaw Man bad or Vinland Saga bad, but we'll get into all that in due time. Now we have original Naruto here. Now, I'm classically, recently, as in like the last few years, become a massive Naruto defender. That being said, all of my favorite Naruto stuff is in Shippuden. Though I would definitely put original Naruto in the same category as Dragon Ball and stuff over here. So unless I want to move them all down to B tier, I'm definitely going to have it up here. Naruto's best stuff is probably the Chunin exams. Hot take to nobody I know. The problem is the other stuff, especially in the anime, I don't know if I like that much. Land of Waves is like good. The Chunin exams is really good. The Search for Tsunade arc, I remember being very slow in the anime. And I remember not liking that much. Then the Sasuke retrieval stuff. I really don't like in Shonen when everybody pairs off into one-on-one battles. I think it's very boring. And that's like the only big Naruto arc where they do that. I know that's like a lot of people's like favorite arcs because of it. Especially because it shines a light on some of the more side characters as they get singular fights. I don't really like Naruto versus Sasuke 1 either. I think 2 is like the greatest fight scene of all time besides other Naruto fight scenes. But 1 I'm not the fondest of. So yeah, and there's really only like those 4 big arcs in Naruto. So original Naruto I'm a bit more iffy on. Now we've got the Great Black Lagoon. I think it must have been my second anime somehow after Attack on Titan. Black Lagoon I'm going to put ahead of Pokemon. Black Lagoon was my favorite anime for a long time. Hey, I'm trying to put a tier here then. Actually, I don't think it was here. I think Attack on Titan was definitely still my favorite thing. Then Steins Gate became my favorite thing. And then at some point I decided that I liked Black Lagoon better and that it was my favorite anime because I convinced myself that it was like misunderstood and stuff, which I made videos about eventually later on that aren't too good and you shouldn't go back and watch. And then for a long time it was my favorite. I think even in the big Black Lagoon video I think it is listed as number 1 above Evangelion in that. Now I would definitely say Evangelion is my favorite anime. And obviously I recently did a rewatch of Black Lagoon with Elite RE, and I liked it well enough. In the S tier it still would go. I think a lot of the elements of it are interesting. Like a lot of the little details, like I like weird world geopolitics stuff a lot, and it references that a lot. I do think the core character dynamic between Rock and Revy is still really strong. I think the vibes are immaculate, of Roanapa and stuff like that. I think it still does have probably the single best dub I've ever heard. I think it's probably by far. The Cowboy Bebop is second. Like I like the Steins Gate and the Death Note dubs too. Death Note dub definitely has its cringy moments. The Steins Gate dub, I'm scared that when I go back and watch it, I'll think is a lot more cringy than it is. I also really like the Naruto dub. I watched a bunch of these dubs. The Baccano dub is also really good. But Black Lagoon is the best one. They swear the best. Revy's performance is like singularly incredible. Balalaika is very good too. So is Eda. Rock has his moments of being exceptionally good, and sometimes it's really not that good. Dutch is really good. They're all good. But yeah, Black Lagoon, I used to just say it's the dialogue, brother, it's the best. But obviously the character dynamic is really good too. I like the arc structure. I like the world. I like the vibes. Everything about Black Lagoon is really cool, brother. Cool. Also have like 10 hours of audio, both scripted and not scripted, if you want to hear fleshed out thoughts about that. But watch the unscripted stuff, because the scripted stuff is all really cringe. And will Chainsaw Man or Berserk 2016 be rated the lowest? I haven't given any thought to what will be the lowest. That's a very interesting question. We'll get to it. The Great Steins Gate is in a very interesting opinion, where at some point my opinion soured on it. I'm probably leaving it at the top of A tier here, without having rewatched it, which is like criminal. I have watched Steins Gate like 3 or 4 times. I guess I should have gone through that, right? Everything here, I've seen DBZ a bunch of times in individual parts. I've never watched it fully through more than once, I don't think. Same with like Dragon Ball. Attack on Titan, I've never watched. I watched season 1 like a bunch of times. But everything else only once, I'm almost sure. And I still haven't seen the last episode because fuck it, who cares about this shitty anime. Steins Gate I've seen a lot of times. Black Lagoon I've seen fully through maybe 4 times. Obviously Pokemon I haven't even seen fully through once either. Dragon Ball I've still never seen the Master Roshi versus Goku fight. But that latest rewatch, I think it was when I made my brother watch it, and that would have been like before I started the YouTube channel, so it might have been like 2018, 2017. And I still thought it was really good then. I think I'm scared I'll think the later episodes are boring. Like the episode 13 I've always thought was boring, though I think on a first watch through you think is really cool. It's just Okabe running around. I'm a firm believer that the first 12 episodes are obviously the best part of Steins Gate because the character dynamics are the best part. Obviously there's more like emotional extremes later on with like the Kurisu last episode stuff. Like as in like the last episode where she is before we get retcon her out of existence is really good. I think the ending is very strong. I think the last episode the second last episode being misdirected and the last episode being the thing, and then walking past each other, all that stuff is really good. But like when we have like an individual Rukia episode and an individual episode, like obviously the Suzuha one, like the I failed thing is great. The Moeka one is great, but there's also like the Ferris one. Is that one really good? I don't know. I'm scared of rewatching those and thinking they're boring. I'm also scared of thinking it's cringe. So at some point I just decided it wasn't like in my top tier and I have to wait till a rewatch. Good news, me and Jockey Bacon are planning on rewatching this at some point soon. So we'll have more updated Steins Gate stuff coming soon. Death Note, I almost can't bring myself to put it in front of Steins Gate, but right now my opinion in Death Note being good is very solid. The problem with these two is I've also seen many, many reaction series to both of them. Death Note's peaks are like unparalleledly good in like the world of fiction almost. Like the end of episode 2, like I remember sitting there, I watched episode 1 of Death Note, I was like, oh, this is okay, it's kind of interesting. And then it immediately became a cat and mouse game, and that was the coolest thing like trying to figure out. I've told this story before too, but I watched episode 1 of Death Note. Then I went to a friend's house the next day, and I was trying to like pitch him which anime we should watch because I had shown him like Attack on Titan. And I remember we watched the first episode, and that's how I know that Death Note was the third out of these. We watched episode 1 of Black Lagoon, episode 1 of Steins Gate, and episode 1 of Death Note. And we were like going to decide which one we wanted to watch more. And Black Lagoon and Steins Gate both have terrible episodes. So showing them to like a 12-year-old to try and get them interested is like, well, this isn't going to work. And I even think he chose one of the other ones. Like I think he might have chosen Black Lagoon, but I was like, no, let's watch Death Note because I haven't seen it. No, I think I had seen episode 2. Because I remember watching it the night before on like the couch in the living room and being like, the ending twist of this is so great. But then we watched like 10 episodes straight, and like us trying to figure out before the show would tell us what was happening is one of the best like viewing experiences it probably is the best viewing experience I've ever had with anything. Where it's like, I remember we got some things first. Like I remember figuring out that like Naomi had like used a fake name. And like when it got revealed, we both freaked the fuck out. There was another thing, I can't remember the details. But like obviously there's lots of twists and turns and stuff, and like trying to keep up, like nothing else has ever done that to me where it's like, oh, you're trying to like guess, like it's almost a game as well as a show where you're trying to figure out who's on top here and what the play is here or predict the twist. Death Note gamifies that so much early on that it's very, very fun to watch. Like especially in like I think it's episode 11, which is the Misa episode, but Misa's only revealed at the end, and like you don't see light, so you think light is like gone off the deep end, and it's like this crazy mixing of like this is some insane shit that's happening, plus you almost feel like the show is jumping the shark because it's like bastardizing Light's characterization up until that point. And then obviously the twist at the end that there's a second person and they also have the Shinigami eyes. Like that is one of the greatest episodes of anything ever. Also, like, the Yatsuba stuff towards the end is awesome. I think like Death Note also towards the end is like the most invested I've ever been in anything, because I did just like worship Light Yagami. I did just think I wanted him to win. I thought he was the coolest guy because he was the smartest guy and I was also the smartest guy. One of those early Death Note things too is like the pen in the drawer thing, which I thought was like the coolest thing ever, because I like would hide different stuff from my parents and would have like a bunch of different like failure mechanisms. And I think this is before I was even jerking off. So it wasn't even jerking off. It was like the fact that I was watching YouTube videos at all, I thought they would like think was like evil. So I hid that, and like I would sit in a certain part and like I would check the audio. So I would turn the audio up to the audio in which I watched something. Then I would run to the door to like walk to the toilet, which is like right outside my room, and see if you could hear it from there. And then I would like have this, like, I would sit in my chair in a certain position and stuff like that, and I would like practice walking down the hallway to see how much you could hear before they got there, and like I had all this stuff planned out. It's like, oh, I'm hiding the Death Note like he's hiding this thing. This is almost certainly, like, that type of stuff is definitely why, like, I'm very secretive about everything, which is like a big meme that everybody like Jockey Bacon makes fun of me a long time. But this has been in me since I was 8 years old, right? It's childhood trauma. So I don't know. I just related to the great Light Yagami so much. I was a little sociopath in the 8th grade here. But I remember like literally like counting down with him at the end of the second last episode, waiting for. And then when Light lost, like I decided Death Note sucked. I was like, this is a shit show. I hate Nia. He sucks. Death Note was terrible. Maybe I was even like, yeah, it was pretty good for the first 25 episodes when the great Light Yagami won. But after that, it was fucking shit. Light was totally too smart. And there was like a YouTube video at the time that sort of mirrored these frustrations that was called like How Light Yagami Should Have Won or something. And I remember watching that video and being like, fucking this guy knows what he's talking about, brother. This is how Death Note should have ended, etc., etc. I don't know. I haven't fully rewatched Death Note in a long time either. It is another one that I've sort of subsisted my rewatch off of by like I've seen so many reaction series to Death Note. Obviously, it's like the most reactable show of all time. But overall, yeah, it's like another wait and see, but like my memories are so strong that it has to be like A tier. CeeLo Pild says, reminds me of me and my mum watching Stranger Things when I was 10 and theorizing with her. So much fun. CeeLo Pild, why don't you kill yourself, you little young piece of shit? Telling me 2016 and you're 10 years old speculating with your mother about Stranger Things? Stranger Things is a modern show, goddammit. It's a show that came out when I was in film and TV class in like grade 11. That's when I first learned about Stranger Things. And that was only like 2 years ago in my head. So fuck you, CeeLo Pild. We're getting old, chat. We're all getting old. Then we've got, you know, I've seen like 3-4 anime at this point. So we're going to throw in Yamada's First Time. I found Yamada's First Time. Now this is going to like, I almost want to put it at the top of A tier, but I love Yamada's First Time. What a funny show. I rewatched it probably at the end of 2018, I think. I watched it for the first time at the end of 2014. I remember vividly because I was on vacation and I didn't want to watch it because I wasn't sure, because we had like a dial-up internet or something on like a USB stick while we were away because the house we were staying in didn't have internet because it's like 2014. And I was like, I bet they can see the search history or something. And I was like paranoid about that. So I remember like just wanting my vacation to end because I was like halfway through Yamada's First Time so I could go home and watch the rest of Yamada's First Time. Because I didn't want them to see that I was watching like a sex show. Because I would get in trouble. See, me being secretive again is like, it's the tale of my life. Now, obviously my parents were retarded and they definitely wouldn't have been able to check it. Though I was staying with my older cousin who was like a tech cousin. Who did like to be nosy a lot and did like walk in on me when I was like writing up a review for Black Lagoon on the same vacation. And he was trying to be encouraging, but him seeing it made me like want to kill myself and like think I'm a little nerd or something, writing my little reviews on my MacBook when I was like 12 years old. Anyway, classic times. I remember that. I was upstairs and, you know, I was just playing Dragon Ball Budokai, all 3 of them that I would have gotten for Christmas that year. Because I used to buy retro games for Christmas because I was epic. Because this is 2014, I'm buying PS2 games. playing like Budokai 3 up there and like beating it and stuff, pretty epic. Listening to Podtaku and the CM Punk shoot interview that came out in late 2014 all up there. Crazy memories from that. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Even though Yamada's first time was absent and I was pissed off about it. God damn it, chat. That was and now that I'm thinking of it, that was like on a lake and that like contradicts my thingy where there was a different thingy. Oh, that's weird. I can't go into detail about that, but I just had a blast of like recollections. Oh, I do remember what the pool looked like because I'm trying to think of what the pool looked like for that like vacation place, but I just remembered it. That's crazy. Speaking of Yamada's first time, let's talk about the show. It's a funny show. I found it. It was first recommended to me in a Misty Cornexia video, where he used to like thumbnail bait with like boobies and everything. And the pitch for this show was like, this girl wants to have sex with 100 guys before she finishes high school at the end of the year. So she can, when she finds, because that'll give her enough practice for when she finds a guy that she actually likes, she'll be super good at sex and won't be embarrassed in front of him. A very relatable fear, You're always scared about your first time when you're like 12 years old and stuff. And you're like, man, I just gotta find a girl to fuck and then dump, so then I never have to go through that embarrassment again. That's not how it's going to work out, player. So it was just cute from that angle. And then Yamada is obviously a very outgoing, bombastic girl character, which is like my favorite type of character, so I loved it. And I thought it was funny. And I also thought it was like informative. I'm like, how does sex and relationships work? Let me use Yamada's first time as an outlet for this. And I will say, Yamada's friend in the show, like the responsible older friend with the big boobs, she's not older, they're in the same grade. She was a good influence. Like Yamada would say something wacky and you'd be like, oh, is that how this works? And then the black-haired lady would show up and say, that's not how it works, you're crazy, and sex-pilled Yamada, you naughty girl. Spoiler alert, Yamada doesn't have sex with 100 guys. She doesn't even have sex with one in this whole show. But the first boy she decides that's going to be her cherry boy, she falls in love with. But he's a very plain-looking boy named Kosuda. And hilarity ensues. There's a girl who wants to fuck her brother. It's crazy, chat. But I just remember it being very funny, and like it's obviously like romance things and then like running away and wacky stuff, and I like high school romance, chat. What can I say? At this time, I was loving Videl and Gohan. I was loving Kosuda and Yamada here. So Yamada's first time, what a delight. I want to rewatch it again soon. It is on my like Excel spreadsheet here of things that I want to rewatch this year. Because Elite RE was like saying, how can anybody like this show? Well, Kyle Entertainment needs to tell me why he likes this show. And so I was like going to rewatch it to prove him wrong, and I'll make a great video essay about why Yamada's first time is the best anime of all time. Because it is. It's from like 2007. That's like when anime was at its peak. It's great. Anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. Haha. Sealypild's laughing at us. Can you believe it? Next up, we have Baccano. What a great show Baccano is. It definitely goes in like I guess I'm more confident in Baccano being good when I go back and rewatch it, so should I put it above Steins Gate and Death Note? Baccano is like this crazy, out-of-order, non-linear, multi-stories that doesn't look like they're going to cross over, but cross over in a weird way type of vibe. It's set in the 1920s when Prohibition is a thing. Actually, it might be the early 1930s now that I think about it. When is Prohibition repealed? I don't remember. Though it's also set in it. There's also a flashback to like the 1600s on a pirate ship and stuff. I definitely didn't understand it the first time I watched it. I think I've seen it twice. It has a lot of really wacky characters. It has a lot of really wacky situations. When I think about Baccano, I remember the train storyline the most. And like, man, this is like the coolest storyline of all time. And the vibes of the train and the dark stuff that's happening and the little kid and the crazy guy and the rail tracer and like the moodiness of like the ED. It was definitely very Black Lagoon-esque in a sense. So I really, really liked it. And obviously the dub is really good and not cringe at all. Which helps anime a lot. I don't know what else to say about Baccano. I remember getting to the end because this show is almost inherently meta. Like the first scene is our characters speculating about like who should be the main character of the story, and sort of a commentary on how non-linear the story is. And I remember there is a conclusion to that at the end of the specials. And I don't remember what the conclusion is, but I remember the conclusion being especially meta. And I think it was like the first time I had seen something and appreciated something that was very meta. I feel like the first meta thing I ever saw was Deadpool versus the Marvel Universe, or kills the Marvel Universe, or whatever. And I sort of got that spoiled in a YouTube video sometime. This would have been around 2014, where it like, oh, and the guy's like, and it ends with Deadpool popping out and killing his authors at the end. And I just thought that was like the coolest idea of all time. And this, along with Baccano's ending and sort of Baccano's setup, is probably what first introduced me to liking meta stuff, which is obviously something I like very much. Like something like Fire Punch is almost entirely predicated on its meta. Chainsaw Man 2 to a lesser extent. And these are like some of my favorite things ever. Even the Great Boardwalk Empire is a great meta moment. I'm just thinking of all my favorite things and how they're meta. Evangelion has slight meta moments here and there. We love meta here. Ooh, but yes, we love the Great Baccano. Then Freezing. Freezing is like an ecchi, like Ava clone or something. I don't remember the details. I guess we'll put it in C tier. I literally just did watch it because I wanted to see a vagina. And I thought like, oh, an ecchi anime thinks it means you'll see a vagina. Because I had kind of seen them. Like, I think the first woman I ever saw naked, now this is going to be weird for a guy my age, but was Sable's nudes in something, because I found it on Google easily once without actually looking up porn. And again, this was me being paranoid that somebody could see search history and I would get found out. So I'm like 12, and I remember, and I didn't entirely understand what a vagina looked like, because there's like a bush in that photo and you're trying to sing and it just looks like a slit and you're like, what is this? And so I was like, I know the answer. Without looking at porn, I can look at anime, because if I get caught on anime, it'll look a little worse than porn. So I was looking at ecchi shows, and I was like, for Freezing's I've seen boobs and things, like boobs aren't interesting. I've seen butts and things, butts aren't interesting. But vaginas, we gotta see them. Now, Freezing, of course, is an ecchi show and also an anime, and it's not a hentai. And even if it was, I don't even know if hentais show vaginas uncensored very much. So I was being an idiot. So I tricked myself into watching this whole show. But I remember enjoying the show enough. It was a weird Ava clone. Every fight resulted in the girls like humiliating the other girl by like stripping them naked and like cutting their boob holders off. What do you call those? Bras, and like their clothes off, and you did get to see every cool girl naked. So I guess I liked that. Now, this wasn't for jerking off. I never jerked off to any of these anime. It was just for science and stuff, I had to figure things out. But actually, not for the meme. Because why would you jerk off to anime when you could jerk off to porn? But why would I be thinking of this if I wasn't jerking off to porn? I think I was just jerking off to, like, maybe pictures and stuff? I don't remember at the time. But I was definitely jerking off by this point. So anyway. But Freezing would be an interesting one to revisit just to see how it looks. Like, this had to be a cheap-looking show, but I don't remember it looking very cheap or stuff like that. And also, nobody's ever seen this show, so it's kind of funny that I've seen it. After this is sort of the era where I started a million shows but didn't finish any of them. And so we jump into like 2016 from like 2014, maybe the beginning of 2015, to Erased here, which I watched seasonally as it came out. The anime that launched Mother's Basement's channel. I remember seeing Mother's Basement videos around this time. It would have been some of the first video essays I've seen. I remember having the generic opinion that like, oh, Erased kind of fell off by the end. Like the ending was kind of lame. And the teacher was just the bad guy, and that was a very obvious twist. And obviously I was big into these big twist shows like Attack on Titan and Death Note and even Steins Gate. There were all these big mystery shows. And Erased having a lame mystery, which was like the whole appeal to me, was a little disappointing. I don't know. And the Mother's Basement also had a video about how the anime sort of rushed the manga's ending, and the manga is really good. So maybe one day we'll rewatch it or see the manga and Erased will be redeemed. But I remember just being left with a bit of disappointment and liking the beginning of it a lot. It is around this time that I finished Naruto Shippuden, and Naruto Shippuden is obviously a great 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Naruto Shippuden, my classic story with Naruto is I had rented the DVDs for a little bit at the DVD shop and gotten mostly through the tuning exams. And then it was announced, famously, that Naruto would be ending soon, in like 5 weeks. And at that moment, I stood up in my chair and I said, by God, I'm going to rewatch Naruto from the start. I'm going to watch every filler episode and I'm going to catch up in these 5 weeks. And my God, chat, did I actually get close. Now, I remember skipping some Naruto filler episodes towards the end, like the Gaara ones, even though those are like the ones people like just because it was the end. And I was like, can I please just get to Shippuden? It's been like 3 days of constant filler. I remember a great filler episode. Ino and Naruto had to not laugh at a funeral or something. It was genius. I got all the way up to the beginning of the war. Now, this seems impossible, but this is what my memories tell me is true. Now, I was definitely skipping a lot of the filler in Naruto Shippuden eventually. Though I did watch a lot of the early ones. Like, I remember watching the one where Naruto kisses that girl accidentally. And wonders about his first kiss, but then recalls that he'd kissed Sasuke before that accidentally one time in a great gag. And then I dropped Naruto. Like, once I didn't catch up and the beginning of the war is kind of boring, so I, like, dropped it for, like, 2 years. And then in 2016, I, like, went back and I think I only watched from, like, the war part, and I watched the rest of it. But I'd also been spoiled on Naruto sort of completely by that point, I thought. And it really was that later section of watching Naruto Shippuden where I was like, there were so many moments past the beginning of the war that I hadn't been spoiled on somehow that I thought were like legitimately 10 out of 10 moments. Now, I've sort of become a proto-Kyle Entertainment by this time. This is like 2016. I have like opinions on things that are a little bit more thought out. And like the narrative is that Naruto sucks, right? Especially in 2016, like Naruto is a shitty anime that fell off, especially in the end, and especially that war arc sucks. Now, there's been a lot of retconning now that people like Naruto a little bit, though it still hasn't happened. That's just sort of in smaller communities like the Krasdorf-esque community. But widely, I think people still like Naruto's kind of mid, unless you're literally like, I don't know how the anime fandom views anything now. Like people like Demon Slayer and shit, so what the fuck do I know? But there were so many moments towards the end, like Itachi saying that he'll always love Sasuke and like the head touch is like an incredible moment, like a 10 out of 10 moment that I somehow wasn't spoiled on, and like I was just watching it and being like, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. Naruto, Obito and Kakashi fighting and the Obito reveal, both of these moments are like incredible 11 out of 10 moments. Like all of the like the first Hokage backstory with Madara is like 10 out of 10. All the Hokage getting revived was something I also was like not spoiled on. So that's an incredible moment. Orochimaru coming back, all this stuff I was like unspoiled on, and like getting to it all was like incredible. And even the later stuff, like obviously I was spoiled on the Naruto and Sasuke fight, more so the end stuff and like the epilogue chapter and stuff like that. But that Naruto and Sasuke fight at the end is like the best fight scene in fiction besides Kakashi and Obito maybe, which is from the same segment of the story. Also, I liked all the Kaguya stuff, and I thought the Kaguya fight and stuff like that was fun. There's just so many moments from that ending where I'm like, this is the greatest thing of all time. And I haven't even mentioned the shitty Mike Guy moment that most people really like. Taking a drink, goddammit, it'll already fill some time. So I remember really liking that, but I still remember being of the opinion that like, oh, Naruto like fell off and stuff like that, like the generic internet talking points. And then I watched some YouTube videos and it sort of changed my mind that Naruto might actually be genius. And then I actually did a mini rewatch of sorts where I rewatched the Pain stuff and I was like, okay, this is like a 10 out of 10, absolutely. And that's also the Itachi stuff in there. And obviously that's like the part that people think is peak Naruto. But then I got a bit into the Kage Summit stuff, which is stuff that people really don't like. And I was like, nope, this is still like a 10 out of 10 absolutely throughout. But then I sort of fell off my rewatch, and now I'm trying to convince Elite RE to do a full rewatch of everything. So Naruto Shippuden, to me right now, is a 10 out of 10. Like, I know I really like that first arc, and I think the build-up to finding Sasuke for the first time is really good. And then there's, like, the Asuna stuff that's, like, really good. So it's like, there's no, like, bad parts of Naruto Shippuden, so I'm like, oh, this is a 10 out of 10. Though it is tentative, and I haven't properly rewatched it or anything. Psycho Pass is an anime I watched and I really didn't like. I have no idea how I would feel now. I feel like I was being mean to it. This is when I'm in my Digibro era now. So this is like 2018, I think. And Psycho Pass was one of Trixie, as we call them now, his favorite anime. And so I watched it because, of course I did. I started K-On! Around that time. I actually did like K-On!, but Psycho Pass was just annoying to me. It was like the plot didn't make too much sense. I thought the characters were all really, really boring and generic. Obviously, a lot of the concepts are cool, but they're sci-fi concepts, and only in the year of 2025 have I started to like sci-fi stuff, or late 2024. So then none of that stuff impressed me. And Psycho Pass constantly does monologues where they like reference philosophy books, and I remember thinking that was so lame and gay at the time, and I was like, this sucks. But I pushed my way through it, and I got to the end, and it had something to do with a factory, and I think the bad guy got killed. But the other guy and the main guy that was judgmental also had a Huey Psycho Pass or something. I don't remember. And I remember thinking the main guy was just shitty, like Spike, even though I hadn't seen Cowboy Bebop at that point. But I remember not liking Psycho Pass, though I'm pretty sure I could rewatch it and like it a lot now and not be so like judgmental and like non-charitable to it. But I was not having fun watching it back then. My Hero Academia at the time. My Hero Academia was one of the... My Hero Academia might have been before Psycho Pass. My Hero Academia was like the first anime I had watched in like a long time, in like a year and a bit. And I remember like My Hero Academia was the new hot shonen on the block that did everything that Naruto did wrong right, and it had like good women and stuff like that. These were like the talking points when season 2 was fresh. And I remember watching season 1 and thinking that it was great and being very engaged and liking it a lot. And then at some point I decided it was kind of generic and not good, with very good moments. So it's like stayed at a 7 out of 10 in my mind, which I would put in B tier around here. Like obviously the like 1,000,000% moment where he's fighting Bakugo's not dad that totally looks like his dad, that I definitely thought was his dad, but turned out not to be his dad. I think his name is Muscular. They're both blonde, you see. And they're both hot-headed and mean. That moment where he goes 1,000,000%, that's like a standout moment. I remember just liking the All Might Deku dynamic a lot at the beginning. The whole... I don't really care for the Nomu fight part, but like all that, like the climax of season 1 was cool. I remember thinking a lot of the character interactions were cool. Obviously, there's some like romance, high school stuff going on, so I liked that stuff. I remember thinking I liked Bakugo a lot because he was mean. Famously, when Bakugo cries at the end of season 3, that's when I dropped this shit show. Pathetic. But there are a bunch of like cool moments like that. I remember My Hero Academia being a victim of like speculating a lot about what was going to happen and then being disappointed sometimes. Like I remember like the villains like invade that camp and stuff, and then I remember like the way they get out of it is like they just like grab Bakugo or something, but then they don't grab him at the end, and I didn't think that was very climactic. And I remember being upset about that. Also, United States of Smash is a really good moment and stuff like that. The tournament arc is pretty cool. Though I don't really like Todoroki at all, so like I didn't really like that climactic fight at all either. I did like that Bakugo won it. I thought that was cool. And obviously I hate that Ida guy, and the Steins stuff was overrated. It was okay, I guess. But yeah, that's My Hero Academia. Evangelion comes into the mix some way here. Now, obviously Evangelion, I already spoiled it earlier, is my favorite anime. I've just grouped everything Evangelion together because it's all my favorite anime, I think. Like, I gave every rebuild a 10 out of 10 except for the third one, which I think I gave a 9 out of 10 just because the beginning part was a fight that was boring. Obviously, End of Ava is a 10 out of 10, and the original series is a 10 out of 10. When I first watched it, though, because we're kind of going through things chronologically here, which is funny, I don't know. I remember thinking it was not that fun. And I don't even remember liking Asuka that much the first time, I don't think. But I finished it, and then I was like, okay. And then I don't even think I watched End of Ava right away, because I was like, oh, whatever. And then eventually I did, but I don't even think I liked it that much then. I think then I watched like a reaction series to it, and I was like, this is really cool. And then at some point I rewatched it and decided it was really good. And then I think it wasn't until, like, the YouTube channel. Because I was doing a thing there for a while where I was rewatching Ava every year. I've seen it like 5 or 6 times fully through at this point. Well, at least fully through End of Ava. I've seen most of the rebuilds twice except for the fourth one, which I've only seen once. But I'm ready to rewatch it again. I'm trying to convince people. So I have no idea when this happened and when, like, Asuka became my favorite character, obviously. But I think by the end of high school, it was pretty ingrained. And I definitely watched it in my last year of high school. So I don't know. But at some point, Evangelion's obviously the best anime of all time. The characters are the best. I also watched it dubbed the first time. I know that, so that's funny. The original old school dub. I didn't know about this. Netflix dub came out years later. Obviously, it has a bunch of my favorite characters ever. Asuka and Rei, especially. Misato is also very good. Obviously, Shinji is very good. Obviously, Kaji is very good. Obviously, Ritsuko is very good. Obviously, Gendo is very good. Obviously, Fuyutsuki is very good. Obviously, etc., etc., etc. Toji's okay. We kind of like... what's his name? Oh, I'm forgetting the other one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I really like the plot. Now that I've, like, understood it better, I really like the thematic stuff. I think it's a very good thematic, like, especially in End of Ava. End of Ava is, like, the greatest thing of all time. I always talk about this, but you get to a point in that movie where you realize the song still hasn't happened yet, and then you realize that this, like, all-time great song comes from this movie and is going to happen soon. And you just, like, sing it in your head as, like, everything's happening. And it's, like, the greatest emotional release of all time. Only to be followed up by the Yui speech right afterwards is Ava Unit 1 floats off into space. And she gives the, like, the thematic resolution. And you're like, oh my god, I feel like all my problems are solved in life. Like, I understand people. And I understand how to be nice to people. And that if we were all just nice to each other, our lives would be so much easier. It's almost like a moment of zen and connecting with humanity, and in a way instrumentality could never do, and it makes you feel peaceful and like, man, I'm gonna, like, harbor these emotions. I'm gonna remember what it feels like to be in this moment at the end of Evangelion, and I'm gonna, like, change my life for the better. So help me God. And then the feeling fades, and it kind of intentionally fades by the ending, because the next scene is Shinji choking Asuka on a beach. But even then, that has, like, a nice little hopeful ending. At least that's how I interpret it. But eventually you lose that to the mundanities of life. And you sort of have to rewatch it all again to get that feeling. I have not contradicted it. I have compared it to the feelings from the best ContraPoints videos a lot. You're like, oh, I understand humanity right now. This is genius. But, like, that's almost irrelevant to why Evangelion is, like, the best. I feel like I got that feeling towards the end of the fourth rebuild too. So I think it was successful in that angle. Obviously, the fourth rebuild is maybe the most interesting visual movie I've ever seen, with sort of the different styles it goes for, and obviously it looks really good. The CG stuff, the toy stuff, even though the game stuff, the, like, projector stuff, the live action segments, there's obviously live action segments in End of Ava too. Obviously it's very visually interesting in all regards. Evangelion's got it all. It's the greatest of all time. I had the same experience with Sex Education, Leopold says, a long time ago, I think. I was scared my parents would check my Netflix and see it, so I watched 1 second of 15 shows to hide it in the recent section. Genius, Leopold. I would expect nothing else from my favoritist viewers. That's genius. But also, Sex Education came out when I was an adult, so stop saying things like that. I think we've covered the great Neon Genesis Evangelion. Then, at some point here, I read Berserk, and then right after I finished Berserk, I watched all of the Berserk anime in order. Like, literally right afterwards, I think. And I remember being frustrated with all of them and not liking any of them too much. I've since rewatched the film trilogy, and I really like the film trilogy. I'll put it up here with, like, Yamada's First Time. I think they're very interesting, stylized versions of the stuff. I think it's much easier to forgive it for not being Berserk, because it's just like a movie of clip compilations, and, you know, that's pretty cool. Whereas the TV show is more closely Nilly Berserk, and that's like more frustrating in terms of like plot and what it adapts. So like, and all of the coolest stuff to have seen in that art style is the stuff that goes unadapted, like Puck or the Skull Knight or any of that stuff. It's like, god damn it. You do get Rosine a little bit, so that's pretty good. The 97 Berserk anime looks really good. A lot of people say it sounds really good, and I would agree, but I like the soundtrack from the movies even better. I would say, well, I was nearly going to say I think I like it more than Attack on Titan, but if you were sitting in front of me and you're like, Kyle Entertainment, for your transgressions, I'm going to watch one of these shows instead of reading the manga. I'm going to watch Attack on Titan or I'm going to watch Berserk. I'd be like, watch Attack on Titan. Okay, it's okay. You'll get most of the story. It's pretty good. Whereas if they were like, I'm just gonna watch the Berserk anime, I would tell you, kill yourself now. But it's visually way better, right? Is it? Probably. Like, it looks cooler. That's just because I prefer the 90s style. So I don't know. I would say it's pretty even with Attack on Titan here. Berserk 2016 is like fine. Like, it looks bad, obviously. And, like, if somebody watched it instead of reading the manga, that would be really bad. But I think it subsists on, like, oh, we get to see the Berserk stuff in, like, an anime form. This is kind of cool. And it subsists on that enough. Obviously, the music for this is pretty good, too. They use a lot of the movie soundtracks a lot. And also, they have some originals. Like, I think, like, Ash Crow is from the movie, too. There's some... Even if it's just Hayo, which they use way too much in the series, it's like okay. It is funny that I think they had to know they weren't getting a third season because there are 2 seasons of this. There's 2016 and 2017. Like they had to know that they weren't getting a third season because they just don't do any of the Ganishka stuff or setting up Ganishka to attack like Vertanis. And I think we just end at Vertanis, right? Very interesting. I would also be very interested just to rewatch this and see what happens. Because season 1 is like obvious. It's just like Tower of Conviction. Then after that, it's like the troll stuff. And then it's Griffith. Griffith might even break into the city. But you like never see who the city is controlled by, I think. It's crazy. Now here I have Eden of the East, which has a Yu-Gi-Oh image. Because ChatGPT must have fucked up when Alito made this. Eden to the East, I'll put at the end of B tier. I remember Eden to the East is one that I started very early, like in 2014. It was one of the ones I watched a few episodes of and then dropped. I think it might have been another Mixty Chronexia video or something where I heard the pitch and thought it was really cool. The pitch for Eden of the East is a guy with no memory gets a phone and like $12 million or something. And like the phone will do anything for him. So if he's like, shoot that guy a million miles away, the phone will like do it. And if he's like, I need a delivery in 2 seconds of my pizza, like somehow the phone will do it. And he meets a girl outside of the White House when she's trying to throw like a penny into a pond or something in the White House grounds and she gets in trouble and something. And I think it's supposed to be a romance between those two because he's like naked and stuff at the beginning. And they're like, I saw you naked. And she's like freaking out. She's a very moe girl. I don't know. It's cute. And basically, eventually, way later down the line, like, I actually watched the rest of the show. And I remember being vaguely disappointed with it. And I think that's the reading most people have on it, where it's like, oh, it's a good premise, but it's, like, only 12 episodes long, and the mystery at the end isn't that cool, and whatever. And I remember vaguely agreeing. But I would be curious to go back and rewatch it. I don't even know if it's based off a manga or something. But I would like to revisit it at some point. But I have seen Eden to the East. I remember the first few episodes being pretty cool. So there it is at the bottom of B tier. It's probably worse than Freezing, right? Freezing didn't do anything wrong. Vinland Saga. I don't know. I guess it's at like the top of C tier here. It's obviously no Berserk 2016. It's kind of more annoying because people think it's good, whereas everybody thinks Berserk 2016 is bad. I feel like I maintain everything I disliked about... Oh my god, we're taking too long and we're getting a battery warning. It's just the first battery warning, right? Okay, it is. I really hate the filler. I really hate telling it out of order. I really hate the action stuff. I don't think the show looks particularly good all the time. I think it looks janky and where the CG and the actual stuff doesn't meld really good. Obviously, like the Thor Hell fights are okay. They're pretty cool. Towards the end, it gets all right. That second to last episode where Leaf meets Thorfinn in the jail cell is like terrible. Like that's like show ruiningly bad to me, but it is just because I've seen the manga and it's like a change. I'm sure it doesn't matter that much to anime onlys. And obviously all of my frustration with the show comes from it being different to the manga, and that annoying me. Season 2, we reviewed it with Mia and Bacon and Ari, and I remember thinking it was like always good and like a 7 out of 10. Obviously, there's always moments where I'm like, well, this didn't hit like the manga. Like the Thorgil thing, obviously, is like one of my favorite moments in fiction in the manga. And the anime, I thought it was fine. Like the Thorfinn crying stuff, I remember making fun of that and not liking that in the crazy flashback. I remember thinking the pacing and stuff was okay for the farm arc. So I liked season 2, so I didn't dislike it too much. Some of those season 1 things really did annoy me. But again, I would probably like to rewatch it and see what I think. I don't know. With season 2 being pretty good, it's probably like up here. It's like Dragon Ball GT levels. Devilman Crybaby is interesting. Obviously, it's visually really cool. I think the ending does suck a little bit. I think the Miki stuff is handled really well. I think it had a lot of impact. I think it's probably more traumatizing in the anime. But you care for Miki a lot more in the manga, I think. That's not... I feel like most people would say you care for Miki way more in the anime because she's like a nice girl, whereas she's like a mean girl in the manga. The ending is pretty bad in Crybaby, though. It's pretty fast, and they sort of divvy up when to tell things. Like the very beginning chapter of Devilman is like the flashback to prehistoric times. That's like shoehorned into the beginning of episode 10. And I don't know. There is something off about Crybaby. There's weird little moments. It's a little episodic at parts, but that's like fine. It's very bold in all of its choices. I don't think it comes together fully though. But also, this is another one I haven't seen in a long time, so I would like to rewatch it. There's a lot of sex in Devilman Crybaby, and I think those were all cool, especially the very graphic gay sex scene. Anime maybe onlys. Animes only, maybe. Cowboy Bebop is another one that I didn't really care for at all the first time through, and then watched it the second time, and just like literally like 2 weeks later, I think it was through full-length reactions, and I was like, this is the greatest anime of all time. I jokingly put at the end of that at the beginning of that Pokemon video that still hasn't come out that I like Pokemon better than Cowboy Bebop. So I might do that. Cowboy Bebop obviously has more of a mix of range of episodes of like good to boring. Though I don't know if there's any boring ones now that if I would rewatch them. Like, I always joke that the clown one is boring to me because it's just one big action scene, but it's like cool. Obviously Cowboy Bebop has like historic highs where it's like the end of episode 6, all of episode 5, all of episodes 12 and 13, all of episodes 24, 25, and 26. There's other really good ones in there that I'm forgetting. So many of them are so great. Call Me. Obviously, the soundtrack is like the best in anime. Call Me, Words We Could Have Said, Rain, Blue, Real Folk Blues, Cats on Mars, Elm. Do we have to name them all? Obviously, the Elm episode is another one that's up there. That's really, 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 really good. Cowboy Bebop is great. I talked about it quite a lot recently. Serial Experiments Lane is another S tier one. I did rewatch this one like a year or two ago. Lane is another one like Ava where it's like it's very dense and a lot, and you forget a lot of it. And then when you re-experience it, you're like, oh, this is how all that fits together. And then you see something even like new for the first time. You're like, oh, this reinforces all the things I thought about it. I remember like right after finishing Lane being like, I figured out Lane and what each one of the symbols means, and like this is. Because also these shows do have like a very general like thematic beats where it's like be good to people or connect with the world or something, and don't be afraid. It's like the general theme for both of them, and even for like Cowboy Bebop or something. Or even for Naruto, really. And somewhat for Black Lagoon. It's a pretty universal theme in most of these things. But there's like more to it, to the individual symbols and like what individual characters represent and like why this visual thing and why Lane sort of has more like sporadic characters will react to things in wacky ways. And you're like, why did they react like that? And then you think it through and you can kind of figure it out. Obviously, the visual language of Serial Experiments Lane is really cool. The vibes are immaculate. If you like that type of like pseudo-real, like the world feels fake, like what's going on, trippy sort of nonsense. With like contradicting scenes and character motivations and stuff like that. It's really, 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 really cool. And I do think it is like Ava, where you get really into the plot towards the back end of the series before you forget the whole plot, which is really cool. Like I'm just remembering like the sexy housewife or whatever that was like into the Wired or whatever, and her getting a delivery and this young dude like delivering it and stuff like that. Like, that's a weird middle, like, that has to be, like, episode 8 opening scene or something, but it stuck with me or whatever. The Promised Neverland, I've only seen season 1, and I haven't even read the manga, but it was pretty good. It was another mystery show where I was like, oh, this is a cool mystery. It's probably not as cool as Devilman Crybaby. There's obviously the famous episode 1 twist where it's evil and stuff like that. Who didn't see that coming? The twists and turns are pretty good. They're not as high as, like, Attack on Titan, or like something like Heavenly Delusion even more recently, though I've only read the manga for that, though I've seen episode 1, or like Steins Gate or Death Note or anything like that, but it's kind of in the veins of those shows, and I appreciated it nonetheless. Maidens of the Savage Season is just a high school rom-com. You'd think with all my, like, how I've described my taste so far, I would have seen more of these, but I haven't, and it makes me sad a little bit. I'd put it, it's probably at the top of B tier. It was a nice little rom-com. There was like 4 main girls and they all got boys. It's told from the girl's perspective, which is something I seem to like, with Yamada's first time, etc., etc. Let's see, one of them, like the stuck-up student council girl got with like the weird-looking boy, and then the main girl got with the boring main-looking boy, and the nerdy little lolly girl got with her teacher. That was pretty epic. And then there was one other girl who I can't remember at all, or who she got with. There's another one I would revisit. It was pretty good. I know there's a manga and stuff. It also, the problem with these anime, they all end on cucking, where you don't actually get to see them get together, really. Like, there's like a confession scene, but I don't care about confession scenes. I want confession kiss sex scenes, goddammit, even if they're high schoolers. There's, but there's sort of a metaphor for a sex scene at the end of Maidens of Savage Season where the train goes through the hole in the mountain. And she's like, oh, it's not going to hurt that much, and then it ends. So that's pretty epic. Razafan is a classic Evangelion clone, and it's really cool. I would put it somewhere near Yamada's first time. This is definitely one I would have to rewatch to fully appreciate. There was a lot of like side plots and stuff like that. It's very Evangelion-esque in that sense that I didn't really understand the resolution of. There's like a trio of characters that are sort of like side characters, but are also in flashbacks, and I think I confused some of them, and then they had like a climactic moment at the end where they all shot each other, and I was like, man, if I could remember who these characters were, well, like, I would like this. And also, like, the Gendo character has, like, a standoff with, like, a ghost in the battle station before it all blows up in one of the last episodes, and I'm like, this would be certainly really cool if I, like, remember the full context of this character or sort of understand what was happening. And also, the ending is very bold. It's sort of like, what if Shinji ended up with Masato, which is, like, crazy. And there's like time dilation and stuff like that, and it's all Egyptian themed, and I don't know, it's really cool, Razafan. It has a great soundtrack that I use in videos a lot. So I enjoyed it. That was a slog at certain parts, but that was definitely in my era where I wasn't liking consuming things, and I had to like force myself to do it. And also rewatches I always like more than the first watch, so I can't wait to rewatch Razafan one day. Razafan's really cool. I like Razafan a lot. The Chainsaw Man anime, famously, I didn't really like, though I never thought it was, like, terrible. So I'm going to put it with, like, Attack on Titan. No, My Hero Academia is definitely better than it. Erased might not be. Pokemon and Bakugan might be a little low, and so might Dragon Ball GT. We'll put Chainsaw Man over here with the Vinland Saga. It is in the same category of it. Like, it made me mad in the moment, but it's probably just because people were like, oh, this can, like, replace the manga, which I don't think people believe about Chainsaw Man anymore. I gotta wrap this up. Mushoku Tensei, I've got a million videos on it. In terms of overall ranking here, it's like better than The Promised Neverland, right? I probably care about it more than Devilman Crybaby, so I'd probably put it in like A tier, even though it's the most generic piece of shit ever. Madoka Magica, what a great show. We like the great Madoka Magica. It's definitely an A tier here. I might put it ahead of Razafan even. We like Madoka Magica here. The movie's really good. I don't know, these ones have sentimental value to me that I think I would put ahead of Madoka Magica right now. But after like rewatches all of these, and maybe even one of Madoka Magica one day, these might be reordered. Gunbuster I like a lot. Definitely, probably... Gunbuster's probably better than Mushoku Tensei, right? I think the Gunbuster, the Super Inazuma kick is like a great moment. I think the last episode is a great moment, probably better than any moment in Mushoku Tensei. What's the best moment in Mushoku Tensei? When Paul's told he should have had 3 kids? Or when Rudy is told that? Diebuster is obviously the fun one, where it is easily in the top 3 here. It's probably not better than Naruto Shippuden, actually. But it is, like... Is it? Naruto Shippuden probably has more dips. Diebuster is tied for 3rd with Naruto Shippuden, I think. It's just, like, the greatest. I did a whole, like, scripted video and unscripted video ranting about how Diebuster is the greatest of all time. Gunsmith Cats was pretty good. It was pretty short. I really liked the vibes. The vibes were immaculate. But it's very short, and obviously there's not too much to get invested in, so it's around My Hero Academia here, I'd probably say. We should probably move this and this up here. The Berserk 2019, this is pretty good. And Attack on Titan is pretty good, so I guess I just fucked around with that. Anyway, my laptop's gone flat at an alarming rate, so that means we've got to end it here. I put everything in order, basically, as I went through, so I don't got to go back and reorder it. I guess Psycho Pass is in D tier because I really just didn't like enjoying it, or like watching it at all. But it's in tune for a recontextualization in my psyche, I think. And after that, it's Berserk and Freezing, which I think Silepod speculated that Vinland Saga and Chainsaw Man would be at the bottom, and they're kind of like over here. Into the East, what did you deserve to be down here? I guess I had I don't know, it was kind of lame at the end, I think. Anyway, top 5 anime of all time includes Pokemon. That's pretty based if you ask me. Elite Oribro is going to run out of battery. Super Inazuma kick. Its vibes being immaculate. A Ludwig reference. I think it is, but we're saying it anyway. People say it, you know. But anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, you got to get out of here. Support links in the description below. Thanks.